Let me ask you something. What's been running through your mind lately? Doubts, regrets, fear, or faith, hope, purpose? Because whatever it is, I promise you, that's exactly what you're calling into your life. You don't even realize it. You think life is random, like things just happen to you. But truth is your focus is the magnet, and life is just responding to your signal. If your mind is focused on pain, more pain will find you. If your soul is anchored in lack will show up at your doorstep every morning like it was invited. But if you wake up with gratitude, purpose, and vision in your heart, the world will bend in your favor. Not immediately, not magically, but undeniably. This isn't a theory. This is a law of energy, of spirit, of life. So if you're tired of being stuck, if you're exhausted from repeating the same year over and over and calling it a life, then now is the time to change. Because nothing changes until you do. What you focus on you attract. And if you don't shift that focus, you'll stay stuck forever. Everything starts in your mind. Every single moment of your life, whether it brought you joy or pain, began with a thought. It may have been small at first, just a whisper in the background, but it grew. It grew because you fed it. That's the thing about thoughts. They don't just pass through. They plant roots. They build foundations. And whatever you water in your mind begins to show up in your life. Most people don't even realize the power they've given away simply by not paying attention to what they think about the most. The mind is a mirror. It reflects exactly what you give it. You give it fear, and it will find reasons to be afraid. You give it hate, and it will highlight everything that confirms your bitterness. But you give it hope, and suddenly the same world that seemed dark starts to reveal cracks of light. You give it discipline, and the chaos begins to calm. You give it gratitude, and everything you once took for granted becomes a miracle in motion. You can't live a positive life with a negative mind. That's not just a quote, it's a law. A universal law that doesn't make exceptions for anyone. Your energy introduces you before you even speak, and that energy is created by your thoughts. Think about it. You've had days where everything seemed fine on the outside, but inside, your mind was racing. Full of doubt, full of anxiety, full of fear. And what happened? That internal storm created external confusion. Miscommunications happened. Doors you were hoping to walk through closed. People sensed something was off, and the day spiraled. But you've also had moments where you woke up with purpose. You reminded yourself of who you are. You focused on peace. You stayed grounded in gratitude. And those days felt different, didn't they? Not because the world changed, but because your focus did. That's the mirror in action. That's your life reflecting your mindset. What you hold in your mind, you hold in your hand eventually. The mind is a seed, and your focus is the water. People want change without changing their thinking. They want peace while constantly rehearsing pain. They want abundance but speak lack every day. It doesn't work like that. The universe is listening. Your subconscious is listening. And every time you repeat something to yourself, you're building a mental structure. That structure becomes your emotional home. Some people live in mansions of fear, built room by room over the years. Others have built palaces of purpose, not because life was easy, but because they guarded their mind like a fortress. The difference isn't luck. The difference is intention. What are you choosing to think about the most? What thoughts are you entertaining, even when you know they don't serve you? Are you letting guilt take up space? Are you feeding the fear that says you're not enough? Or are you focusing on the truth, that you're still here, still growing, still fighting, and that alone makes you unstoppable? You can't blame the mirror for what it shows. If you want to change the reflection, you have to change the source. That means taking full ownership of what you let live in your mind. That means protecting your peace like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your peace is not a luxury. It's a necessity, and you protect it by being intentional with your focus. What you focus on expands. That's why the more you worry, the more reasons you'll find to be worried. The more you look for flaws, the more flaws you'll see. But if you focus on healing, you'll start to find peace in places you never noticed before. If you focus on solutions, the problems start to lose their grip. It's not magic. It's mindset. It's your internal narrative shaping your external reality. Let's get real. You've spent too long thinking you're stuck. But maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're just repeating the same thoughts and calling it reality. The same fears. The same doubts. The same old story about who you are and what you're capable of. But that story can be rewritten. Not in a day, not in a moment, but in every single decision you make to think differently. When you catch yourself slipping into old mental patterns, that's your opportunity. That's the moment where change begins. Not when everything's perfect, not when you feel ready, but when you choose to shift your focus even in the middle of the storm. Even when your circumstances tell a different story, because your thoughts create your beliefs create your actions, and your actions create your life. You want a new life? Start with a new focus. You want to attract better? Think better. Stop waiting for the world to hand you peace. Create it by choosing to see things differently. By deciding that today you will speak life over yourself. You will protect your energy. You will focus on progress, not perfection, on gratitude, not lack, on hope, not fear. And as you keep choosing that every single day, something begins to shift. Maybe slowly at first, but surely. You begin to notice things changing. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You changed what you were feeding your mind. You cleaned the mirror, and now you're seeing a new reflection. One that's stronger, wiser, more grounded. The mind is powerful. It can be your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. But the good news is, you get to choose. You get to decide what thoughts you hold on to and what thoughts you let go. You don't have to entertain every negative voice that tries to sneak in. You can observe it, acknowledge it, and then shift your focus to something higher. Something true. Something healing. That's how you break cycles. That's how you step into your power. Not by changing everything overnight, but by changing your focus one moment at a time. Because what you feed grows. And what you starve, dies. Feed your faith. Starve your fear. And watch your life become the reflection of a mind that chose light, even when darkness was easier. So ask yourself every day, what am I focusing on? And more importantly, what is that focus attracting into my life? Because the answer to that question holds the key to your future. If you want better, think better. If you want peace, think peace. If you want purpose, focus on purpose. And if you want to be free, choose thoughts that lead you there. The mirror is waiting. What will you reflect? Whatever you give your energy to grows. That's a truth that doesn't care how you feel about it, doesn't ask for your permission, and won't wait until you're ready to accept it. It simply works. Your focus, your attention, your thoughts, they're all investments. And like any investment, there's a return. You focus on anger long enough, and you'll find yourself surrounded by reasons to stay angry. You focus on fear, and your world starts to shrink until you can barely breathe under the weight of what might go wrong. That's the trap. That's how people stay stuck. Not because they aren't capable of breaking free, but because they've been giving all their energy to the very thing they're trying to escape from. You see, most people don't even realize how much power they're giving away every single day. They wake up already stressed, already worried, already thinking about what could go wrong. And with every ounce of focus they pour into those negative outcomes, they unknowingly create more of them. The mind doesn't care whether your thoughts serve you or destroy you. It just multiplies what you give it. Like a garden, it doesn't choose between flowers and weeds. It grows whatever you plant and water. So if you're constantly focused on what's missing, what's broken, what hurts, you'll find yourself drowning in a life that reflects exactly that. But if you shift that focus, if you take the same energy you've been using to worry and use it to believe, to heal, to build, everything changes. This isn't just some feel-good idea. It's truth you can see in action every day. Look at the most miserable people you know. They always have something to complain about, something to be angry about, some reason life is unfair. And maybe they're not wrong. Maybe life did hit them hard. But instead of healing, they've made pain their focus. Instead of moving forward, they stare at the past, and that focus becomes their story. But then look at the people who have been through hell and still rise with grace. They've been hurt too. But they choose to focus on growth. They choose to give their energy to hope, and that choice, that's what sets them free. It's not what happens to you, it's what you choose to focus on that shapes your life. You can't pour all your energy into what's wrong and expect what's right to grow. You can't keep replaying your failures and expect to feel like a winner. That's not how it works. Your mind is designed to find evidence for whatever you believe. So when you focus on problems, your brain will find more of them. But when you focus on solutions, when you focus on possibilities, on learning, on becoming better, your brain gets to work on making those things real. It's not magic. It's discipline. And discipline starts with deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Most people spend their lives reacting instead of creating. They react to negativity, they react to criticism, they react to fear. And with every reaction, they lose a little more control over their focus. But you don't have to live that way. You don't have to be at the mercy of every emotion, every setback, every negative thought. You can train your focus like a muscle. You can teach your mind to notice the good, Even when the bad is louder, you can redirect your energy to things that elevate you, not drain you. And once you do that consistently, the shift is undeniable. Imagine waking up and choosing your focus instead of letting your circumstances decide it for you. Imagine choosing to give your energy to peace, even when chaos knocks at your door. Imagine choosing gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because you've decided to see the beauty in what you already have. That kind of focus changes everything. It doesn't mean you won't face storms, but it means you won't be consumed by them. It means you'll walk through fire and still carry light, because your energy isn't being wasted on fear. It's being invested in faith. Too often, we wait for life to calm down before we shift our focus. We wait for the job, the relationship, the money, the validation. But here's the truth: the calm doesn't come before the focus. It follows it. You decide what you want to magnify. You choose what deserves your attention. And that choice will determine whether you stay stuck or rise. Energy flows where attention goes. So if your attention is always on what hurts, what you lack, what scares you, that's where your energy will go. But when your attention turns to healing, to building, to rising, your energy will carry you there. You've got more power than you realize. Every day, you wake up with a limited amount of energy. And every day, you decide how to spend it. Are you spending it on people who drain you? On thoughts that defeat you? On habits that sabotage you? Or are you investing it in growth, in healing, in building a life that reflects who you really are? This isn't about pretending the pain isn't real. It's about choosing not to feed it. It's about saying, yes, this hurts, but I'm not going to live here. It's about saying, yes, I've been through darkness, but I'm turning my face to the light. The most powerful shift you can make is this: stop focusing on what you don't want, and start focusing on what you do want. Stop giving energy to fear, and start giving energy to vision. Speak life into your future. Envision your healing, picture your peace, and then walk in the direction of that vision with your head held high. Every time you do, you're training your mind to work for you, not against you. You're reprogramming your reality one thought at a time. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your fears. You are the one who decides what gets your energy. And that decision will shape the life you live. You can feed the fear, or you can feed the fire inside you that's ready to rise. You can focus on the loss, or you can focus on the lesson. You can focus on the delay, or you can focus on the destiny still waiting for you to show up. The power is in your hands. The question is, where is your focus? Because wherever it is, your energy is flowing, and your life is following. So if you want to change your life, don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the pain to stop. Don't wait for the world to give you a sign. Make the decision now. Choose to focus on what builds you. Choose to give your energy to what lifts you. And then watch, as slowly but surely, everything around you begins to rise to match that focus. The storm may still rage, but you'll stand in the middle of it with peace, with power, with purpose. Because you've taken back control of the one thing that shapes everything: your focus. This isn't just about changing circumstances. It goes much deeper than that. This is about shaping the person you become. The truth is, what you focus on over time becomes your identity. It slowly weaves itself into the way you think, the way you talk, the way you move through the world. If you wake up every day thinking about your failures, replaying every mistake, carrying every regret like a badge of shame, then sooner or later you stop seeing those as things that happened. You start seeing them as who you are. You don't just believe you failed, you believe you are a failure. That's how dangerous and powerful focus really is. It has the ability to take a temporary experience and make it feel like a permanent identity. And that's how people get stuck. Not because they're not capable of more. Not because they don't have talent or potential, but because they've allowed their focus to attach to something that no longer serves them. They've become so used to thinking a certain way, feeling a certain way, seeing themselves a certain way, that they don't realize they're living in a story that's no longer true. It's not because life didn't give them chances. It's because their identity couldn't recognize opportunity when it knocked. Their mind was stuck in the past, and their focus made them blind to the present. But the beautiful thing about identity is that it's not fixed. It's not carved in stone. It's shaped daily by what you think, what you say, and most importantly, what you focus on. If you want to become someone new, if you want to rise above who you used to be, you don't need permission. You just need a new focus. You need to start feeding your mind thoughts that match the version of you that you want to become. You can't keep calling yourself broken and expect to feel whole. You can't keep identifying with weakness and expect to walk in strength. You have to speak life over yourself before life starts to reflect it back. It doesn't happen all at once. You're not going to wake up one day and suddenly feel like a new person. It's a process. But it begins the moment you stop identifying with the version of you that your pain created and start aligning with the version of you that your purpose requires. You start showing up differently. You start saying no to things you used to tolerate. You stop chasing validation and start living from a place of inner worth. And slowly, your focus shifts. Not by force, but by intention. You begin to look in the mirror and see someone worth fighting for. Someone worth loving. Someone who is still growing, still learning, still becoming. That's when everything changes. Because identity dictates behavior, and behavior dictates results. If you see yourself as weak, you'll act accordingly. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll settle for less. But when you start to see yourself as powerful, when you focus on resilience, when you see your worth even in the middle of the mess, you carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with confidence. You speak with clarity. You attract people and opportunities that match the energy you've been cultivating within. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because your focus built a new identity that could handle what the old you never could. The words you speak to yourself matter. The way you frame your story matters. If all you focus on is how you were hurt, how you were left, how you were overlooked, then you create an identity around being the victim. But if you shift your focus to how you healed, how you endured, how you're still here, you begin to create an identity around being the warrior. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in the aftermath. And that choice starts with your focus. Every time you choose to speak healing instead of bitterness, to focus on growth instead of defeat, you're rewriting your identity. You're teaching your mind a new story. One that empowers instead of limits. One that frees instead of binds. The mind will always try to go back to what's familiar, even if it's painful. That's why it takes conscious effort to focus on the new. To build a new mental home when the old one keeps calling you back. But if you stay with it, if you keep reinforcing the truth of who you are becoming, not who you used to be, eventually the new identity becomes more natural than the old. You stop faking confidence and start living it. You stop trying to convince yourself and start believing it. And others start to notice. They see the shift. They feel the energy. Because identity isn't just something you carry on the inside. It shows up in everything you do. Your focus is powerful because it's not just shaping your thoughts. It's shaping your identity. If you're always focused on what you're not, what you don't have, where you fell short, then that becomes the filter through which you see everything. But if you start focusing on what you're capable of, what you've overcome, what you're working toward, then that becomes your new lens. You start seeing possibility where you once saw pain. You start noticing opportunities where you once only saw obstacles. The world hasn't changed, but your focus has. And that changes everything. You have to be intentional with what you allow yourself to focus on. Because your focus becomes your story, and your story becomes your standard. If your story is one of defeat, of failure, of never enough, then you'll live beneath your potential. But if your story is one of comeback, of purpose, of becoming, then you'll rise into the version of you that's always been waiting on the other side of your focus. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you permission to change. You don't need validation to become who you were meant to be. You just need to start focusing on the right things. On growth. On purpose. On love. On healing. On truth. So ask yourself, what are you identifying with right now? Are you focusing on your pain so much that you've made it your home? Are you letting your past write your future? Or are you focusing on becoming? On rising? On showing up for yourself in ways you never have before? Because whatever you focus on long enough, you will begin to believe. And whatever you believe, you will begin to live. Choose to focus on the version of you that makes you proud. And keep choosing it, every day. Until the person in the mirror isn't a stranger, but a reflection of the strength you always had inside. You want to know where your life is headed? Look at what you're focused on right now. Not what you say you want, not what you dream about late at night, but what you truly fix your attention on every single day, because that focus you carry, whether you're aware of it or not, is building your future moment by moment. It's shaping your path in the smallest decisions, the quietest thoughts, the things you repeat to yourself when no one else is listening. What you focus on isn't just a reflection of who you are. It's the blueprint of who you're becoming. You may think your focus is harmless, just passing thoughts, simple worries, tiny daydreams. But it's not. Focus is power. And if you're not directing that power with intention, it's pulling you toward a future that might not serve you. Because focus has gravity, it pulls everything around it in your life closer and closer until you're living in the very world your mind created. People talk about their dreams, their goals, their next chapter. But then they spend their days focusing on everything that could go wrong. They obsess over failures, rejections, past heartbreaks, and missed opportunities. They give their best mental energy to what hurt them, what scared them, what defeated them. And then they wonder why their future feels like a repeat of their past. It's not because they're not capable. It's because they haven't learned how to shift their focus. You can't build a new future while staring at an old wound. You can't walk forward if you're constantly looking backward. And yet that's exactly what so many of us do. Not out of weakness but out of habit. It's familiar, it feels safe. But familiarity is not the same as freedom. Sometimes the thing keeping you stuck isn't your circumstances. It's your focus on the wrong things. Your focus is your future in disguise. That means you don't have to wait for years to see where you're going. You just have to look at where your attention goes when you wake up in the morning. Do you focus on gratitude? Or do you focus on lack? Do you think about what you're building? Or do you think about what's broken? Do you feed your mind with vision? Or do you let it sink in doubt? Because whatever you consistently focus on, you start to attract. You draw in the kind of energy, people, and situations that match your internal state. If you constantly focus on drama, you'll invite more drama. If you obsess over rejection, you'll interpret even love as abandonment. But if you focus on peace, you'll create it. If you focus on possibility, you'll start to see it in the most unexpected places. Focus doesn't just determine how you feel. It determines what you find in the world. It takes real discipline to focus on the future you want, especially when the present doesn't look like it. When everything around you feels like chaos, when people doubt you, when progress is slow, that's when your focus is tested the most. Can you still keep your eyes on the vision? Can you still remind yourself who you're becoming, even when no one else sees it yet? Because that kind of focus builds resilience. It strengthens you in silence so that when the moment comes, you're not shaken by success. You're prepared for it. Focus isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing what kind of reality you're going to build next. Most people don't realize how quickly the wrong focus can take control of their future. One negative thought becomes a belief. That belief shapes decisions. Those decisions become habits. And before you know it, 5 years have passed and you're still in the same place mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But the opposite is also true. One intentional shift in focus, from fear to faith, from doubt to trust, from anger to purpose, can change the direction of your entire life. It starts with a moment, but if you hold that focus long enough, it becomes a movement. A movement within your mind, your heart, your habits. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a focused mind. Because a focused mind can move mountains that a scattered one can't even climb. Think about a camera lens. When it's out of focus, everything is blurry. You can't see what's important. You're unsure where to look. But once that lens locks in, everything becomes clear. You know exactly what you're meant to see. That's what happens when your focus is aligned with your purpose. Suddenly, the distractions lose power. The noise fades. You stop chasing everything and start becoming something. Clarity replaces confusion. Confidence replaces hesitation. Because you're no longer trying to be everything to everyone. You're focused. And focus brings direction. Direction brings progress. Progress brings transformation. It's easy to focus when everything's going well. But the real test is when life gets dark. When the future is uncertain. When failure is fresh. When your heart is broken. That's when your focus matters most. Because whatever you give your focus to in those moments will either destroy you or deliver you. Will you focus on the pain? Or will you focus on the lesson? Will you let your circumstances shape your mindset? Or will you let your mindset shape your future? You always have a choice. You don't get to control everything that happens to you. But you do get to control what you give your attention to. And that's enough to change your entire path. Don't underestimate the power of small shifts in focus. Even choosing to think differently for 10 minutes a day is a seed. It's a quiet declaration to the universe. I am no longer available for the thoughts that keep me stuck. I am no longer a prisoner of my past. I'm building something new. And every time you come back to that focus, even when you fall, even when you drift, you strengthen that future. Focus is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about saying, I know where I'm going, and I'm not letting anything distract me from getting there. So if your life feels stuck, If your days feel like they're all blending into one long cycle, if your soul is craving change, don't start by changing the world. Start by changing your focus. Start by asking yourself, what am I constantly thinking about? Is it lifting me or limiting me? Is it building a future or dragging me back to the past? Your answers will reveal your trajectory, and if you don't like where it's going, that's your sign to shift. Focus is not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. But it is powerful. Because what you focus on becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes what you live. Choose your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Every thought, every moment, every day. That's the power you've had all along. You've probably heard it said before, change your thoughts, change your life. But let's go even deeper than that. If you want to change your life, you have to start by changing your focus. Because your focus is what fuels everything else. It's not just what you think, it's what you feed. It's what you stare at. It's what you let consume you. And the hard truth is this: if you don't take control of what you focus on, it will control you. It will dictate your mood, your motivation, your habits, your beliefs, and eventually your outcomes. That's why you can't afford to be casual about where your attention goes. If your life feels stuck, it's not always because something is wrong with you. Sometimes it's because you've been focusing on the wrong things for too long. You've been pouring your energy into what hurts, instead of what heals. You've been giving your attention to what drains you, instead of what drives you. And nothing changes until you change that. Most people live on autopilot, not realizing that their focus is writing the script for their future. They get up, grab their phones, and immediately start scrolling through other people's lives, comparing themselves, absorbing negativity, and feeding their minds a diet of distraction. Before they even get a chance to think for themselves, they've already given their attention away, and with it goes their power. But imagine how different things could be if you started your day focusing on gratitude, on purpose, on growth. Imagine how your mind would shift if you consciously chose to feed it with what lifts you instead of what limits you. That kind of intentional focus is not just self-care, it's self-leadership. It's how you reclaim the power that life, and sometimes even you, have forgotten you hold. When you change your focus, you begin to see what was always there, but hidden beneath your old way of seeing. You start to notice opportunities that you used to walk past. You hear wisdom in the silence. You find strength in the very place you once felt weak. Because your focus changes your perspective, and your perspective changes what you believe is possible. A narrow, fear-based focus will convince you that you're out of options, that you're not good enough, that your best days are behind you. But a clear, purpose-driven focus will open your eyes to the fact that you are still growing, still learning, still evolving, still in control of the story you're telling with your life. You don't have to have everything figured out to shift your focus. You just have to be willing to stop feeding what no longer serves you. That means saying no to distractions that waste your time. That means being honest about the people, the thoughts, the habits that take more from you than they give. That means choosing, day after day, moment after moment, to focus on what helps you rise. It doesn't mean life will be easy, but it does mean you'll get stronger. Because with every intentional shift in focus, you're building a life that's aligned with who you really are. Not the version of you that your fear created, but the one that your purpose is calling into existence. There will always be things fighting for your attention. Pain will try to get you to stare at the past. Doubt will beg you to question your worth. Fear will try to convince you that staying small is safer than stepping out in faith. But you are not a victim of your thoughts. You are the one who decides where your attention lies. And when you start choosing to focus on your healing, your vision, your strength, your discipline, you stop reacting to life and start creating it. You stop waiting to feel ready and start walking in readiness. Because focus doesn't wait for motivation, it creates it. Focus doesn't need external approval. It builds internal confidence. And focus doesn't entertain every voice. It chooses what voice gets to lead. That's the shift that will change everything for you. When you stop focusing on being understood and start focusing on being aligned. When you stop focusing on who walked away and start focusing on who's still with you, even if that person is just you. When you stop focusing on the delay and start focusing on the development that's happening in the waiting, that kind of focus is power. It's clarity, it's freedom. And it's available to you right now, not someday, not after you hit your goals, not after the pain goes away, but right now, in this very moment, with the breath you just took. You get to decide the kind of energy you want to carry. You get to choose what thoughts live in your mind. that doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's possible. It means that even when the world feels chaotic, you can still choose calm. Even when everything feels uncertain, you can still choose faith. Even when people doubt you, you can still choose to believe in yourself. And every time you make that choice, you are changing the trajectory of your life. Because your focus becomes your filter. It determines what you see, how you see it, and what you do about it. If you focus on fear, you'll only see risk. If you focus on opportunity, you'll find potential everywhere. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't have to become someone new in a single breath. But you do have to start. You have to take the first step. And that first step is choosing to focus on something different, on something better, on something true. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the sum of your worst decisions. You are a living, breathing work in progress, and the direction of your life is still being written, and the pen is in your hands. But you've got to look up. You've got to shift your focus. You've got to stop staring at the storm and start focusing on the shore you're swimming toward. Because here's the truth, if you don't change your focus, your life will stay the same. You'll keep living out the same patterns, attracting the same pain, reliving the same old stories. But if you do change it, if you commit to feeding the thoughts that serve your healing, your purpose, your future, then nothing can stay the same. Everything begins to shift. Slowly, but surely, and before you know it, you'll look back and realize you're not even the same person anymore. Not because life got easier, but because you got focused. You stopped chasing everything and started becoming something. And that, right there, is where change begins.